Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Revive to Stage. So for those of you who don't know, this is me and Pascal, and we are talking about our steps towards the natural bodybuilding stage. And every other week we're going to be interviewed, so we're going to interview each other every week. We're just going to be going over our week. And if you go to revivestronger.com, you'll be able to see all of our stats, so our daily weigh-ins, current kind of macronutrients and things like that are very important. But we're more so in these updates going to be talking about how our experiences are going. So without babbling on too much myself, I'm going to dive right into and ask Pascal exactly how his first 2 weeks of prep went. So how's your training first of all? How's the first kind of couple of weeks of training? Because I know it was quite different, change of split and things like that, Pascal.
Yeah. Hey, Steve, by the way.
Oh, hi, sorry.
No, the first week or the first 2 weeks went pretty. It was a roller coaster ride. Let me put it that way. Because in regards to training, the training went awesome. I mean, I changed my routine because I trust or I want to trust the process or the strategy Jeff comes up with. For those people who didn't listen to the last episodes, I'm being coached by Jeff Alberts from Team 3DMJ, and just as a side note. And in regards to training, I changed my split coming from a push-pull leg split now into a upper body, lower body, push-pull leg split with 2 rest days and no additional cardio. And not progressing with sets per week as an increased set, but we are lowering the repetitions every single week so that I'm able to increase the weight and by that do a progression, like a double progression. Yeah. And so that this is just a quick overview or rough overview over my training routine. And I realized after the first week that this setup actually is really good for myself as a person, because in the past I was always falling into the volume trap, just increasing the volume from week to week, pushing it that far that I didn't make any progress at some point. And now with the new training split, it was just like, okay, from the first week on, I just felt like that this is plenty of volume I'm doing, and that this should actually be enough to make a good progress during the whole contest prep. And I think I will definitely trust the progress now, or the process in general, and just give it an honest try.
Yeah, I think that's
Because
important.
because I think so many people in the past years, because volume got so sexy due to some research coming out that you need to do more to actually get more out of it. And when we're looking at recent studies, like comparing the 5 sets per body part study from Brad Schoenfeld compared to the German volume training study, we actually could see that 5 sets were actually better than the 10 sets. So there's somewhere a threshold in regards to volume. And I think people jump just straight on the train and do way too much volume in that regard. And this was a kind of a long ramble.
Well,
I'm sorry for that.
no, that's cool. I think what we've come to is basically there's a middle ground, kind of a sweet spot for volume, and like you've said, a lot of people do now see, volume's king for hypertrophy, for muscle growth, so people are pushing the bounds. Whereas what we're probably saying, and what's a better idea, is to start at kind of a minimum amount you can progress with, and then maybe trickle it up from there, rather than starting out with something that's probably too much, which is, I think,
Exactly.
maybe you'd got to a point where it was too much, and now you're scaling it back. And at least it's quite a change for you, because not only are you kind of bringing back a day, but you're also focusing more on your lower body now, because you can start loading those areas. So it's such a big change. All you can do is trust the process, because it's just such a big change. And often change is good, especially if you've been doing something a long time. Mostly the body will respond well to change, because that's kind of, it has to adapt to something new. So I'm glad training's been going well. How's kind of the nutritional side gone?
The nutrition, I needed to get used to it. to be quite honest, because in the past I said to many people that my gaining phase and the cutting phase doesn't really differentiate in regards to the foods I'm eating. However, I needed to make a big change now because I needed to increase my fats because my fats in the past were way too low. But I will touch on that later on. I would just give the listener a little bit of over insight of how my weight is going. In the first week, it went up drastically. I don't know why. I think it had to do with the change of my meals and that I was implementing or eating way more veggies and I'm eating way saltier now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm super busy during the week, and my last meal or my dinner is always at around 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., and I'm going to bed at already 11 p.m. So my weigh-in will be influenced by the late meal as well. And when it's super salty and high with veggies, the volume just accumulates. And I mean, this just spiked my way up. I went from 81 kilos to 83.2. This was my highest weigh-in. And I stayed there for 2 days and then I dropped down again. And now it's slowly coming down. And yesterday I had a high, no, here in the morning I had a super high weigh-in again. But this is something I think it was caused by a lot of stress from yesterday. Because, and now I'm getting back to the topic around my fats and the change in my macronutrient intake. Because here for Revive to Stage, I was planning on getting my bloods done and getting my hormone panel tested. And yesterday I got my test results back from my hormone panel. So my bloods are everything's fine when it comes to bloods. However, my testosterone and estrogen levels are just really bad. I mean, not super bad, but they are outside or below the physiological range, which messes with my mind big time. And after I received the test results yesterday, I was just super stressed the whole day. And I think this is something you can actually see on the way in here today, that I was simply holding a lot of water because of the high rise in cortisol. Well, I mean, this would be an explanation. And in the past, I kind of did a lot of fucked up stuff in regards to my macronutrient intake. I was cutting in 2016 at the beginning of June up to the surgery, and I lost around 12 kilos. This was intended, but in the whole period, I did some diet breaks, of course. But in the whole period, my fat intake was quite low, way too low, to be honest. And I'm having a hard time admitting it because I want to act as a role model, and I want when I'm coaching my clients, I would definitely say something to them and interfere if I would see something like that. And when it comes to myself, I just do fucked up shit.
I think something important to remember here as well is, I feel for you completely, because I won't talk about my past too much, but having suffered below normal levels of testosterone, it is something that's not fun at all. You have the symptoms are not great at all, and so it isn't fun. And it isn't like you feel tired, you have brain fog, sleep's a struggle, you don't have a libido, and you don't have good energy levels. And muscle building is very difficult in that sort of state as well. But we are almost, I guess, we're jumping to conclusions a little bit in terms of kind of, we discussed this before we came on air, just kind of the low fat intake that you had for a prolonged period of time. We think that could well contribute to it because we know fats are important for hormone levels. But yeah, you've just from the outside in, I know you have had a lot on your plate recently. for the last number of months. I don't know how long it's been going on, but with you, Pascal does night school. He does online coaching, did some one-on-one coaching, and also had your day job that you didn't particularly enjoy either. So it's not like you had kind of you were in a period of high stress anyway because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
So whether or not you were just in a bad health state or not, I'm not sure. But you spoke about your testosterone levels were actually at the high physiological, like normal range, years prior, weren't they?
Yeah. Back in 2015, I got my hormone panel checked as well. It was in August 2015, so not that long ago. And my test results came back pretty kind of good, actually. And my test levels were at the higher end of the physiological range. So here in Germany, we have the range of 2.5 to up to 8.9, I think it is. And my test levels came back with 8.7. And now, yesterday, after I got my test results for this time, I was at 2.3, so slightly below the physiological range. However, if you look at the big discrepancy between those phases, which is only 1.5 years, there needs to be something going on in my body. I mean, it was only one test. We need to keep that in mind. One test really doesn't give us a clear answer what is happening. It could be that there's something on that given day, on that test, that there's something going on in my body, that my cortisol level was high. I don't know. It was a time when I had my first dieting week. I was pretty low on calories, actually. My fats weren't as high at that point. As you already mentioned, there's so much going on in my life, and that already since a long period of time. And yeah, we can't really jump the gun, and we can't really. We need to consider causation and correlation, and we can't really judge based on one single test, or just say that the fats are the reason for this physiological state. I think perhaps everything plays a role in it. Yeah, the stress, maybe even the sleep deprivation, low fats, the prolonged period of dieting, because again, I was dieting from June up to December. Then I was at an isocaloric state after my surgery. The surgery was probably a big stressor for my body as well. And I was in an isocaloric state for 2.5 months up to February. Then I did a small 3 weeks mini cut, which was super severe, only to set myself up for the dieting mode, to get into the flow. And I think when looking at everything in the past 9 months, I could definitely imagine that all those influencers played a small, minor, or bigger role in regards to my testosterone levels. And again, I just want to say that it's only one test. Next week, I have an appointment at the Charité here in Berlin, which is pretty well known for its medical area and endocrinology area. And additionally to that, I reached out to Dr. Karl Nadolsky in the US, who's a highly respected endocrinologist who sits in different, who's a member and sits in different boards as well. So, and is a bodybuilder. So he knows his shit, especially when it comes to hormones and testosterone and lifters in general. I reached out to him and he was willing to have a look over my test results. And now I'm waiting for the appointment for getting in another test to get all the hormones tested. So the FSH, the what's it all called, SGHB or something, to really get a better idea of what's going on and what might be the cause. in my body for this kind of state. And I don't want to get onto TRT because my doctor actually yesterday when I was at her and we had a look over my test results, she was straight recommending me on going on
Oh
TRT.
wow.
And I was just like, okay, take a step back. Let's first wait and see what the appointment at the charity brings
Yeah.
and the second test. And after that, we can make some kind of adjustments. And when it's really needed, I don't even know if I would then be willing to actually do it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, actually hearing that is really interesting because if people can relate to it, it's kind of like yo-yo dieting in a sense, where people kind of they really restrict themselves and then they binge and maybe don't fully recover from the diet that's happened, and
Yeah.
then they try and diet again. It gets harder and harder and harder. And so because you have basically you dieted, then had a short break at maintenance, not even a surplus would recover you even more so, and then had a restrictive diet and then came into contest prep, you might be in quite a kind of the body's maybe not had enough time to recover from everything it's gone through. So it could well be that. And so I can definitely see why you wouldn't be kind of jumpy on the TRT. And from the outside in, something I did want to ask actually is to rewind even, is when you were tested before, when your testosterone levels were really high, what scenario happened there? What was your diet like? What was your training like? What was your lifestyle like? Were you in kind of a very different state?
I was. I mean, the diet was quite similar. However, because I had a higher caloric intake on that moment, I think in 2015 in August I was actually gaining.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't cutting in that beach mode kind of state as some people are. I think I was actually bulking or gaining in that phase, so I was pretty high on calories, and thus my fat intake was high as well. I
Yep.
didn't have that much of stress going on in my life because I was only, in regards to my working life, I had a 9 to 5 job. That's about it. Yeah. And unless other than that, it was only okay. In the morning, I went to train, then to work, and then I could relax the rest of the day. And yeah, I mean, it was quite different to what's going on in my life now. And another thing I haven't mentioned, which would be interesting to note, is my caffeine intake, because I could imagine that this plays a role as well. I'm drinking around 66 grams of coffee beans a day. I don't know how much caffeine it is, yeah,
I have
but
no idea.
no, but it's quite a lot. Yeah, a
How
pack
many
of
how many cups do you get?
three.
Strong? Three strong?
Really, really
Oh,
strong
okay.
cups. Uh, a pack of coffee, which has 350 grams of coffee beans, is gone in about a week,
Right.
which is really expensive.
Yeah.
But that's another thing. But the coffee is just so tasteful. But I could imagine that this plays a bigger role as well, because I don't get that quality of sleep. And additionally to that, caffeine, I'm not quite sure in regards when it comes to the medical field and what the literature says, but looking at the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, if caffeine, how much of a role caffeine has on them. Because I could imagine, but this is only a guess, that it plays a big role on the sympathetic nervous system, so that I'm constantly in this flight or
Alert. Yeah.
fight mode, and that this rises my cortisol as well, and that this plays another influence on everything. And yeah, I just want to mention one small thing to the whole dieting thing, because I did implement diet breaks. However, when looking at the past 9 months, I think I was in a caloric deficit for about 6 months in total.
Wow.
And now being absolutely honest with myself, this isn't the best state to actually start a contest prep, because the contest prep will be an additionally 6 months of dieting. So I would effectively be for a whole year in a dieting mode. And currently, I'm not down on the ground where I can make any conclusions, or when I can make any decisions for myself, which doesn't make it any better because I want to do the contest prep. But when looking at the test paper, or the test results, I know that it might not be the best idea. Especially, I tested my leptin levels as well, and they came back super low.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I mean, when looking at those hormones, test levels are low, leptin levels are low. This isn't the best place to start a contest prep in which the main focus and main thing you want to achieve is to actually keep as much muscle mass as possible. And when you're already starting with a super low testosterone level and super low leptin level, it can only get worse. I mean, we are working so hard for actually putting on some muscle mass, and starting with super low testosterone levels would make it quite hard to actually retain that muscle mass.
You know, this is what we've written about it and we've spoken about it, and I guess this is why coaching yourself can be difficult at times, because you lose that long-term objectivity sometimes.
Absolutely.
And I think it happens to everyone. It happens to myself. It happens to a lot. I coach a lot of coaches. You do as well. But yeah, this is why we implement things like the diet breaks. Then we have primer phases, because a week-long diet break is great, but it can't kind of clean up all of the damage that a 3-month diet has done. So you take a primer phase, an extended period of time, take you away from stage. And whilst, like, even hearing you talking about this, I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, there's no way I want Pascal to drop out from his competition or anything like that. And surely he can just dig, and like it's just a blip. But to be honest, I'm so glad that you've had this test and that you're getting all of this done now, because rather than trying to fight against kind of a brick wall, like you can't move because you are in this kind of, you're in a state that you shouldn't be in until way near a stage where you actually have to fight, whereas now Absolutely. It should just be kind of smooth. So I'm really glad from the outside in and being your friend that you've done this at this point. And I think for people listening in,
we are friends.
Yeah. Well, I'm the boss. So I'm looking out for your health. So if you're not well, then you're not going to give our clients what they need. But no, honestly, and I think for people listening in, do not take this stuff for granted. Like, a lot of people will start diets after kind of not taking proper breaks away from dieting. And this is why you can't compete year after year, because people, when they compete, they go for a long time dieting and then they have to recover from that diet. And there is like a time recovering. And if you don't respect that, then you don't give yourself any time to grow or actually get into a kind of a fully healthy state. And you try and diet again, it's not going to work. You actually have to allow a lot of these, the body's so complex. Like your discussion there, what did we touch on? We touched on so many different things like stress levels, sleep, caffeine, activity levels, like how busy you were at work. All of these different aspects can massively impact things. And I think, I don't know, from the outside in, I'd say Carl Nadolski is going to help you a ton. He's so intelligent. So yeah, definitely wait on what he's got to say, because especially because he competes. He's a natural bodybuilder. So he'll be able to help you a ton and give you kind of maybe some actual final answers of, I don't think you should compete. I think you probably are going to be okay to compete. Or if you do want to compete, maybe it's early next year, whatever it might be. And then, go see the specialist. They'll be able to give you some like proper answers. But I can see why your head's in a mess.
Absolutely. And I mean, the worst thing about everything is simply my emotional state right now, and the mind game which comes along with it. and I don't want to cancel the contest prep. I'm that competitive athlete who don't want to drop out. And currently, I'm definitely not dropping out because, again, it's only one test and I don't want to jump straight to it and make any conclusions. I want to wait what Karl Nadolski has to say. Dr. Karl Nadolski, of course, I'm sorry if you're listening to that, and what the specialist has to say. And based on that information and after the second test, I can make any conclusions. And of course, I will definitely talk with Jeff about it, see what he has to say, because it could be that maybe he had some clients in the
Yeah.
past and he has some experience who, yeah, where he can help me in some kind of way. And yeah, I can recall that, or you were mentioning something about diet breaks, taking longer breaks because the body really needs that recovery, which if I'm super honest with myself, haven't given my body the time it perhaps needed to actually really get back on track again, because 6 months of dieting, losing 12 kilos is a lot.
Yeah.
Is a lot. And then the surgery, which is another stressor, then jumping straight into a mini cut and starting the contest prep. This is simply, there's no break, in really, to be honest. Even though I've raised my calories to an isocaloric state, it wasn't enough. But I can recall us talking about that you had a consultation with Jared about that you are probably not in a state where you gave your body enough time to recover. Can you elaborate on this?
So yeah, it's I'm not sure. I think I might have, only because I essentially went through, with my time between my last show and this show, it's been it's like 3 years. So I've only actually done 2 mini cuts, but one of those mini cuts was relatively recent. So I did it before Christmas. Mini cut, I didn't lose kind of huge amounts of weight. Kind of think I lost like 6 pounds. Fairly aggressive though. And then went straight into a mass for 5 weeks. And actually my weight didn't change too much. But regardless, I was definitely in a calorie surplus. I definitely gained some size during that time. And then I maintained for about a month. So in my eyes, and I think as I discussed recently with Jared, I think because it was a mini cut, and a mini cut's, I mean, the whole point of a mini cut is it doesn't really impact your metabolic rate to a large degree. It doesn't have any long-term effects. And then I've gone into kind of surplus calories and then maintenance. I think I am okay. In my eyes and in Jared's eyes, on paper, I'm in a healthy state to have started prep. And in fact, I purposely kind of did it in that way, kind of the mini cuts. So I was in a lean position going into it and kind of always trying to stay quite lean. And whether or not I should sometimes push the boat, I definitely feel like I might stay too lean sometimes. It's hard to say because I've always been quite lean, and a lot of my perception of my leanness and other perceptions of my leanness is in my torso, which does just stay quite shredded, and my glutes do, but my quads,
except for your
back, yeah, my back's not lean. But yeah, it is super interesting. Another example, with one of my clients, he did a mini cut before Christmas, came out, just maintained, and then we're trying to mini cut again, and he's not losing weight as successfully as the one before Christmas. Yeah. And he was like, can you look at the one before Christmas? What am I doing differently to then? Because I lost weight quicker. And I was like, it's just because you haven't given enough time to fully recover. Or we haven't given enough time, really, because it's me as well, obviously. We have to work harder now to lose the same amount of weight. So our solution is to maintain for a longer period of time and don't diet for quite a while. I think that dieting and fat loss, because it's so quick and easy on paper, people get very kind of, oh yeah, I can just always lose fat, but it's not. Like, you have to come away from it. You have to recharge, refuel before you can start going again.
And what it boils down to is that the harder you push, the harder your body fights back and pushes back. And I mean, you can't really push down the throttle like forever, because at some point you will hit the wall And yeah, I mean, maybe I'm there, I don't know, but maybe I'm good to go after next week or after the next 2 weeks. I will definitely keep all the guys and you especially up to date what will happen in the future. And I think in 2 weeks' time, I would definitely have some things to
Yeah.
say where I'm now at and what's going to happen and what's the plan moving forward from now on.
When is your next check-in with Jeff?
It's on Monday.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so you'll probably be able to tell him a lot, tell him what's been going on. It'll be interesting to
Yeah,
hear all about kind of how that's been going as well. But yeah, I think we've been half an hour. Try
totally.
and keep these to around 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to kind of add to the view? I mean, from my perspective to anyone listening to this is really take what we've said to heart. We're both, me and Pascal are 100% honest during these conversations, and we want that not like complete disclosure, because if we hide things, it's only going to bite us in the arse.
Yeah.
And the more honest and open we can be, I mean, we learn from our lessons, we progress with things, and at the moment, it's actually really hard to be conclusive about Pascal's current state.
Absolutely, and I fully agree with what you were saying. And it wasn't easy to actually talk about that because it's really personal and to some extent also intimate for myself. And because I show you guys some weaknesses, and it's not easy to talk about it. And I'm really sorry that this episode was kind of more serious than the other ones. And there will come more positives in the future. Not every single episode in the future will look like that. Uh, okay, unless we are closer to our
We're
competition.
both
Yeah,
just
in this,
being zombie mode.
exactly. But no, it wasn't easy to talk about that. But I fully agree with you on being absolutely transparent to the whole process, because this is the reason why we are doing that show, to give you guys, the audience, the listener out there, a really clear picture of what is going on with us in our heads, with our bodies. And I think it only is has its advantages to share it and actually say it out loud, because otherwise I would sit here and try to cope with it myself, and this wouldn't help me and it wouldn't help any of our listeners out there. So this is something I just wanted to say, that we are here to actually make it as transparent as possible, even though it's kind of
Yeah.
painful to talk about it. And it's kind of hard to actually admit it to yourself, to yeah, be in a position which maybe isn't the best, and maybe you did some wrong stuff in the past, to yeah, show your weaknesses to some extent. But this is what this show is about.
And that's where you grow and learn, and that's what made me want to get into the industry in the first place, because of all the mistakes I made, and
Totally.
to make sure other people don't make them, because
Yeah,
there's so much you can do wrong. And
absolutely.
I think a big take home is health is number one. The bodybuilding stage will always be there.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's a make or break situation right now. And I want to try and leave the viewers on a positive note, but I'm
Totally.
struggling to think of anything massively positive. So
You're on
I
your diet break.
I had
You
my
did
diet
this.
break. I ate pizza. I'm having pasta again tonight. I'm going out with Charlotte tomorrow. I just feel really bad for Pascal right now. But the really good thing is we found this. You found it early. It's inconclusive. Just keep positive, and like we said, the stage will always be there.
Yeah. On that note,
Cheers,
thanks
guys.
for being on. Cheers.